is Don Lemon talking about some of these farmers that happen to be huge MAGA supporters that are now second guessing their decision to support Donald Trump.
Some farmers say without these workers, they have about 2 days that they can run their farms. And then after that, it's over. Oh my God, I love this. Now you're finding out, you dumb idiots. Now you're just figuring this out. You're so stupid and you deserve it. You deserve it because you're so dumb.
All right, I love that. I think it's funny. He's right. Like, wow, maybe I'm rubbing off a little bit on Don Lemon. That sounds like Shapiro. I don't know. But anyway, Don Lemon show, who I love. I love that video. Don Lemon, nice enough to be joining us right now. Don, what happened, man? That was great.
So can I clarify a little bit? By the way, how are you? And I think you are rubbing off on me. And just so you know, I am in Louisiana right now. My sister's in the hospital, so I'm calling you from actually her hospital room. She's getting better. So thank you, everyone.
I'm sorry to hear that. I hope she's okay.
Thank you. She is. So let me clarify. So this all started with the H-1B visa thing. And I said there's a correlation between the H-1B and what's happening with people who are in the farming industry, who are dairy farmers, who are in the service industry, who are in the construction industry. Like all of a sudden, these people are realizing that they now need immigrants. Like Vivek Ramaswamy and the Doge folks are now saying, we need these H-1B visa people. So now they're all figuring it out and they're all upset. So I was talking about the racist people online who were saying all of these disparaging things about Indian Americans. And I don't mean Native Americans. I mean Americans, Indian people who come over on airplanes, take advantage of the H-1B visas and go into these high-tech fields. And now they're saying, we need these guys. We can't get rid of them. You know how most people come over, illegal immigrants, on airplanes and they overstay their visas. But yet we focus on the southern border. Why? Because it's the scary brown people. It's not the right kind of brown people that they want. So they say they're going to deport those people. And what I said was, you guys are such idiots. You don't know that if you try to deport these people, then our farming industries won't be able to stay open. The construction industry, the service industry, and you won't, people who keep groceries in the grocery store. It's like, they just don't understand how dumb they are with this MAGA brain voting against their own interests.
No, you're right, Don. They don't understand how the economy works. They don't understand how important these people are in this country. And the MAGA infighting, I don't know if that surprises you at all. The infighting among MAGA Republicans, even getting to a point where Elon Musk, as you know, I know you're not on X anymore, which was probably a smart move. And they're taking away blue check marks. The Laura Loomers of the world are not being able to get monetized.
Oh my gosh.
What do you make
Bannons of it all?
Yeah.
What do I make of it? Look, the infighting, we told you so. Republicans can't govern. All they can do really in this moment, and look, I guess in the old days they could, but it's been for a while. And by the way, I'm not a Democrat and I'm not a Republican, but Republicans have a hard time governing. What they have a good time, an easy time doing is being obstructionists. Because that's all they can say is what we're not going to do and what we're going to, the concepts of a plan that they're going to have, or that they're going to somehow repeal and replace Obamacare, but they like the Affordable Care Act. They don't know the difference. They're just really, and look, I'm just tired of like beating around the bush. I'm not in legacy media anymore, so I don't have to worry about what the bosses are going to say and hold my tongue. They're just dumb. They just don't know. They don't know what they don't know. And so I'm tired of beating around the bush. And you know what? I have to say a couple salty words, maybe to get your attention. Maybe it's to voice the frustration of the American people who have been trying to tell you you're going to F around and find out. These people are voting against their own interests. They're being co-opted by a cult of personality, and they don't even realize it. Yeah. And so am I shocked? No. I'm surprised that I actually in some way agree with Laura Loomer. I'm sure you are too.
Yeah.
I never had that on my bingo card that I would agree with Laura Loomer that maybe these guys in Doge are into, are out for their own money and their bottom line, and they're not thinking about the American people.
I think what it is, I agree. And I think what it is, Don, is that a guy like an Elon Musk, can you imagine if you're an immigrant, you bring your family to this country, you're working for somebody like an Elon Musk, and you know that if you get fired, you and your entire family are going to be deported. You can treat those
Mhm.
employees, I hate to use the term slaves, but I guess I will in this aspect of it. If you ask for a raise, or if you say anything that you think might upset your boss, you and your family will be deported. What other word would you describe that? I mean, he wants to take advantage. The Vivek Ramaswamis and the Elon Musk want to take advantage of these workers and not treat them as they deserve to be treated, knowing that they have a strong arm on them. That's what, to me, what this is all about.
Well, I will say that I will warn the people and I will caution them and encourage them to look at the record of the folks who are in charge, to look at their records on employees organizing, organized labor, on unions, on giving people a voice.
Mm-hmm.
I just did a thing today on this young lady who was down in New Orleans during the
Yeah.
terror attack, and she got hit by a truck down in the French Quarter, the truck that the guy was driving with the lights off. She heard it. She tried to run, ran her over. She got up, managed to, then got shot. She had a bullet in her foot, right? And then you've heard the story. Amazon said she couldn't take a leave of absence. Now, just look at the records on these companies and see how they feel about organized labor
Mm.
and about the little guy, and if they actually care about the little guy, if they're trying to raise minimum wages, which is
Right.
why, many of the folks who supported Donald Trump, many of the MAGA folks who would be in this position, how
Mm.
would they feel if something like that happened and they couldn't even get a leave of absence? She finally got it because of the outrage on social media. They think like, oh, I'm gonna own the libs and he's gonna deport all these people. Can you imagine if he tried to deport all these people? Do you know what would happen to the economy, Brian? Do
It
you
would tank.
do you do you know what would you if you think the pandemic was bad, if you think the supply chain issue during the pandemic was bad, try
Mm.
to deport all these people
Not going to happen.
and if all of these rich guys in Silicon Valley, see what will happen if you try to get one of their H-1B people who come over and they have very little protections and no
Yep.
leverage. If they say you got to do this, then
Mhm.
you got to do it. You can't say I'm going to my union. My union says no. I
Yeah.
don't have to do this in the contract. They're like, okay, get your ass on a plane.
Yeah.
Excuse my French, and go back to where you came from.
Right. And is it an interesting that 4 years ago Donald Trump spoke out against these visas? I'm sure you've seen the
Oh, he
clips.
said
And
it
now,
was awful. He said
right.
it was awful. I take advantage of them. We need to get rid of them
Mhm.
immediately. They're terrible, terrible, terrible. And then all of a sudden now he says, "Oh, they're the best thing since sliced bread. I love them."
Yeah. Isn't it? And last question about this viral video you put out, which I thought was great, by the way. Don't you find it interesting that all these people? I mean, you're used to being attacked from the right, sadly, but they don't like the language you're using, calling them dumb. When you think of the language they use to talk about people like us, right, and people like you, and the death threats you received when you were at CNN, and yet they're so up in arms and angry because you said the F word and you called them stupid. Right, Don? I mean, it's insane.
Well, I played on my show and on social media. I played their actual dear leader and some of the language he uses to talk about women. He calls Nikki Haley bird brain. Nikki Haley.
Mm.
He calls Maxine Waters dumb. He has said disparaging words and maybe even worse about the vice president of the United States, Kamala Harris. He has called me dumb. He's called NBA players sons of bees.
Mm-hmm.
He's told people to get the F out of here. He's used the F bomb. He's used all kinds of language. But when it comes to him, what they say is, we're not electing a pastor in chief. We're electing a president. But then you get upset. You have a higher standard for a former cable news anchor and an independent journalist than you have for the person who sits in the highest office of the land. What does that say about you? That actually kind of makes you a hypocrite, and it makes you dumb if you have that.
Yeah, he calls us snowflakes, but I think we know who the real snowflakes are.
Well, it's a MAGA. MAGA is the biggest snowflakes, and they're also the biggest identity political group in modern history.
No question. So, Don, I wanted to ask you this question. I don't know if you saw the video of Deb Fisher's
I know what you're going to
husband.
tell me. Her husband refusing to shake the vice president's hand.
Now, the first thing that
go on my social media if you're there and see what I said.
Okay, well,
go ahead.
I have to check that. I didn't see what you said about this, and I should have. But my first reaction when I saw that video was, there is another, and I'm just going to say it, middle-aged, older, crusty Republican white dude who doesn't want to shake the hand of a black woman. And that's a situation where it shouldn't be about him, no matter what you disagree with Kamala Harris on policy or whatever it might be. That's a moment. It's your wife getting sworn in. Don't make it about you. Shake her hand. I would say the same thing if Donald Trump was up there swearing in people that were on the left. Shake his hand. Do it for America. Don't do it. Don't, stop thinking about yourself. Right?
Yeah. I was there was something similar. I forget the exact thing it was. It was at someone's funeral. I think it was at Barbara Bush's funeral or
Mhm.
something like that. And, all of the terrible things that Donald Trump had said about the Bushes over the years, every
Yeah.
single Bush. And he walked in and expected to get this, courtesy and respect from everyone there. And they did. They shook his hand. And I said, you know what? I wouldn't if someone talked about whatever me like that. But in this particular situation where you're being sworn in by the Vice President of the United States, who has not said anything to you personally about you or your family or anything, who has been the most decent person, I believe. This has been the most decent administration besides the Obama administration in a while. You never hear Joe Biden really saying bad things or terrible things. You don't hear Kamala Harris using language, the kind of language that Donald Trump uses. Yeah, and so I put it out there. I said, "F you, you piece of shit. You old racist piece of shit," because that's what he is. He's an old, crusty, racist man who doesn't even realize it. Can't even show this. Now, this is the sexism that goes on and the entitlement. He can't even show his own wife, who is an elected official, a public servant, enough respect to just seconds shake someone's hand. Imagine the kind of person that this old crusty bastard is. Imagine what he's like at home. Imagine how he treats people. Imagine how he treats women and people of color. If you can do that to a sitting vice president of the United States, who, what if she had said, "I'm not going to swear in your wife. I don't want to swear in your wife, and I don't have to." So, yeah, and look, we're going to deal with a lot of that. And I'm just going to call it for what it is. He's an old, crusty, racist, entitled, privileged white man who doesn't even understand what that means. And he gets all upset because of some rhetoric that, well, not even just the rhetoric of his dear leader, but just because that's what's inside of him.
That's the first thing that entered my mind, Don. And I come from a perspective of somebody who's white. And the first thing that entered my mind was race. And that to me is why he didn't shake her hand. I agree with everything you just said. I wanted to ask.
She was very respectful, and she's like, "Okay,
Yes.
yeah."
She kind of shook it off and like, okay, that's probably the way we would have reacted. And then deep down inside, we know why he's not shaking her hand. That's the MAGA Republican Party today, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, Don, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about New Orleans, and I know you grew up in Louisiana, and I thought about you when all this took place, and what a horrible tragedy, how horrific. And I hate to bring politics in this because, the first thing I spoke about was the victims and how young they were. So many, and then a man in a wheelchair who was already paralyzed, who was hidden, the loss of life, an 18-year-old, people in their 20s, their whole life ahead of them, right? And what do the MAGA Republicans do? Immediately, they start talking about, oh, it's a migrant. Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeting about it. Don Jr. tweeting about it. Donald Trump tweeting about it.
Oh, yeah, it's a border.
Yeah.
And
They
where
want
they
to
got
blame
that
it on
fake
policy.
information? Well, part of it is a fake information that from Fox News, and Fox News had to end up retracting part of their story. But the other part is that they can't help but take advantage in a bad way of a tragedy, which is sad. The first words out of the former and president-elect's mouth should have been, "My heart goes out to the families, and we're going to give them all the resources they need, and to law enforcement and the people who helped out, and to the people who were injured and who lost their lives." That wasn't even the first or second thought. The first thing was to blame it on the Dems and on a lie that something that's not even true. It had nothing to do with the southern border. First of all, the man was an American citizen, and he's a veteran. So you know what that means? This is domestic terrorism.
Mhm.
This is homegrown terror, which is the number one terror threat in this country. Now, we do have foreign terrorists. Unfortunately, he was co-opted by a foreign group, according to him. I think he had some issues, obviously. But for them, that's the first thing that came out of their mouth. Now, to the guy in Las Vegas, where you are,
Yep.
they had no idea if it was terrorism or not. He was a white guy. They said nothing about it. I have not, unless I'm mistaken. It took him a while to tweet about it. Haven't
Yep.
heard anything. The guy pledges loyalty to Donald Trump and to MAGA and
Yeah.
to he was driving a Tesla.
Right.
And he's like, I want to make a splash. and he's an Army veteran. And this Doge thing reportedly has said that they're going to cut some of the veterans' money or funds.
Right.
So go figure. He hasn't said anything. What did that say to you about the MAGA folks and about Donald Trump? Anytime there's a tragedy that can involve race where they can be racist, race is going to race.
You're absolutely right. And not only that, but even the guy who committed this horrible terrorist attack in New Orleans, also a registered Republican. They can't blame migrants. And then I don't know if you saw this, Don. I know you're not on X anymore, but Libs of TikTok, which is a despicable Twitter account, X account. Then they started to blame it on black people. And they said, look at all these DEI hires in the FBI in New Orleans. So when the migrant argument wasn't working for them, then they try to blame black people. That doesn't work. They try to blame liberals. They try to blame Democrats. This guy was born in Texas, Don, as you know. He was born in Texas. He served the country. Now we need to find out why he was radicalized, what radicalized him, how did he get to that point? How could we
also PTSD? Also PTSD.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And also, I forget, there was a right-wing kind of MAGA streamer, a podcaster who was saying that they were, with this HB1 thing, that they were giving preference to non-traditional Americans, and they should be given. What does that mean? That means white people, right? They should be. So, and so when it comes to them, they believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion, because they don't think that the brown folks who are, as Vivek Ramaswamy said, smarter than them, not as lazy as them, should get these jobs first. And they said, no. We should be getting these jobs first, even if they're not as smart and as qualified as the brown folks. They believe in diversity, equity, inclusion for themselves,
right?
But not when it comes to black people. So blaming black people on diversity, equity, and inclusion it's just their way of saying, I am a racist, and I'm just going to make any excuse to be a racist.
Make America white again. I wanted to, speaking of race, if you remember the FBI, I think she's a spokesperson for the FBI who spoke at the press conferences, a black woman, and she had said it wasn't a terrorist attack. And then she made a mistake. And then a couple hours later, she corrected herself, right? She clarified, not a huge deal. And MAGA, they're going all after her for saying this wasn't a terrorist attack, yet it's totally okay for them to say that this was a migrant and this was Joe Biden's open border policy. Mike Johnson the other day, Mike Johnson knows that this wasn't a migrant. He goes on Fox News the other day, still blaming Joe Biden and the open border policies, which, by the way, there is no open border. But what do you make of this? I mean,
Walls and who else? There was another one who did the exact same thing.
Oh, yeah, there's a plethora of Trump. Yeah.
What did I make of that? Look, especially, I'm not sure of the context of the one that she did. Anybody can make a mistake, and if you correct it, especially, and then in the beginning, as I know from covering breaking news for decades, situations always change. You get information that could be wrong in the beginning, and then it changes.
Sure.
So for them to call her out about getting that wrong when they got so much wrong about it is just, it's again, as I said, what does that mean? Race is going to race. That's what I lost my train of thought because I wanted to talk about the hypocrisy of them saying that I was going to say, and if they are criticizing her, have they seen Senator Kennedy and what he sounds like and looks like on the air?
I was just going to ask you that next.
With terrible information.
What do you make of that? At the press conference,
I'm here in Louisiana, and people are saying keep those two off of television because they don't know what the hell they're talking about, and they look like idiots, and they're making the people of Louisiana look bad. Did
you hear the joke he made during the press? I'm sure you did, at the press conference about a media company, and they happen to be on the right side of the room, and he makes a snarky attack joke about them. Meanwhile, 14 of his constituents are dead, dozens more injured, and he decides to take the mic and kind of pushes the woman off to the side. The black female who is the FBI spokesperson gets in there to get in a zinger. I mean, how despicable. And then you have the governor. I don't know if you saw pictures of the governor, who I think is also despicable, by the way, who is at an expensive steakhouse dinner that day.
My mom was telling me about, my mom's sitting right next to me. You said the governor was getting criticized for taking a picture of thumbs up at a steakhouse,
right? He's smiling, Don. Your mom is right. And we just put the picture up. He's
they're
smiling.
all pissed off. Louisianans are pissed off, except for the MAGA brain dummies. They're all, they make excuses for everything. So don't even, I don't even just call them dumb. I don't even I give them no credence anymore because they're co-opted. They need to be deprogrammed, and I think it's going to run its course, especially during this administration. It's going to be F around. They F around and they found out.
Yeah.
They're going to find out. But I mean, come
Yeah.
on, Governor.
It's pathetic. Don, I love this. I love this even more, calling out aggressive Don Lemon. I have to say, I really am enjoying this
Dark
very
lemon,
much.
dark lemon.
Dark Lemon. I like
That's
that.
what people are calling me, dark lemon. And
I like
hey, I
this.
am brown. I don't mind it.
I'm White Shapiro. I guess that'll be my nickname.
No, you're gonna be light, dark and light.
Dark
We'll
Light.
start. Maybe you should start a podcast called Darkness and Light.
I like that. I think that would work. I think that would work. Well, Don, I always appreciate when you take the time to do this show. Say hi to your mom for me, and I hope your sister's okay. And
My sister's okay. This perks her
yeah.
up because she's usually in the comments on all of my shows and on my social media.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
to be in here doing it this makes her feel good.
You're
She
a
feels
good
like
brother.
she's back in action. Thank
You're
you.
a good brother and a
Thanks,
good man.
Brian.
Don, good to see you, my friend. Take care. Thank you so
You be
much.
well. Take care. Talk to you soon.
Take care, Don.
Bye-bye.
There you go. That's Don Lemon, everybody. Dark Lemon. I kind of like that. I kind of like that nickname. I'm liking that. Listen, I've always had a tremendous amount of respect for Don Lemon, and I've told him that. I've said that on the air. I think he's a great journalist. I think he's great at what I don't think I know. Don Lemon is great at what he does, and he's very intelligent, and he's very morally grounded, if for lack of a better term, and he's just a good guy.